President, overall, South Korea has done 5 times more tests than the U.S. per capita. Why is that?
I don't think that's true.
That is true. And you said this morning that the White House said the U.S. passes South Korea in virus testing.
Who are you with?
Yahoo News. And it's not true per capita.
Do you want to respond to that? If you have the numbers.
Sure, I have the numbers. So remember early on, we pushed tests to the outbreak areas, just like he described. His primary outbreak was in Miami-Dade and Broward County and Palm Beach, so they pushed tests into that region. We did the same thing in the United States. So if you look at every single state that had an outbreak, their testing is greater than anywhere in the world. They're in the 42 per thousand range.
Your point is taken about individual areas, but overall, we've had 14 times more infections than South Korea. So are we doing something wrong, and why is that? They have a very dense population.
Yeah, our epidemic looks much more like the European epidemic. So right now we're tracking very close to the countries in Europe, and we're testing at their rate of their concentrated epidemics and where they're occurring in the metros. I think it really shows the susceptibility of our major cities in the same way they were susceptible in Europe. And so we've been very focused on that. That's not to say that we're not supporting the rural states. We're very much supporting the rural states and very much supporting their testing. There's no state right now in the United States that's tested really less than 1%, which is pretty remarkable when they don't really have significant cases. So to our Yahoo gentlemen, I just want to make it clear that South Korea's testing was 11 per 100,000, and we're at 17 per 100,000.
All right.
So,
are you going to apologize, Yahoo? That's why you're Yahoo, and nobody knows who the hell you are. Go ahead. Let's
Based
go,
on the
Jeff.
numbers
Go
I've
ahead.
seen,
that's why
not...
nobody knows who you are, including me. Go ahead.
Mr. President,
just check it again.
You ought to get your facts right before you.
Well, we have had 14
Okay, well, your facts are wrong.
Okay, question? Yeah, go ahead. Sure. She's shocked that I picked her.
No.
She's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
In a tweet this weekend, Mr. President, you said that it's incorrect to say you're limiting the scope of the FBI investigation.
What does that have to do with trade? I don't mind answering the question, but, you know, I'd like to do the trade
It has
questions.
to do with the other
right.
headline in the news, which is the Kavanaugh nomination.
I know, but how about talking about trade, and then we'll get to that. We'll do that a little bit later.
Do you think the trade,
Anybody have a trade?
Do you
go
think
ahead,
your trade
please.
deal will pass through Congress, sir?
I think so, but, you know, if it doesn't, we have lots of other roles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge Thomas, welcome. As I look at your record, it continues a pattern of the Biden administration of nominating individuals to the bench who have long careers as activists. Throughout the course of this hearing, you have explained some of your prior positions as simply representing a client. But when I look at your career, I don't see that. I see that you are passionately committed to a particular vision of the law. It has ranged from filing briefs in litigation in the state of Texas, defending race-based discrimination in university admissions, to most consistently transgender activism, and I would submit extremism. And this hasn't been one client you had in one case. This has rather been a consistent pattern that extended when you were a lawyer for the state of California, that extended when you were a lawyer for the U.S. Department of Justice, that extended when you were a lawyer for the state of New York. In 3 different jurisdictions, you have been involved in litigation on the extremes of transgender issues. And in particular, you've carved out an expertise for yourself using litigation to force institutions to allow biological males to use restroom facilities and locker facilities that are also used by girls, young girls, that are used by women. And this has been a pattern. When you were a lawyer for the state of California, you filed a lawsuit against Crunch Fitness, a gym, for not moving quickly enough to allow a biological male to use the women's locker room. When you were a lawyer for the state of New York, you filed briefs against the state of Texas, against the state of North Carolina, again, advocating for biological males to use girls' and women's restrooms. And, you know, the thing I find troubling about these arguments is it seems the women and girls never have any rights. That the girls that would like to shower next to someone who is not a biological male, who would like some privacy, their rights never seem to matter. And your pattern, it's not a single case. It is across 3 jurisdictions over and over again. In the Texas case, the brief you filed said, quote, there is no data or tangible evidence in support of the claim that allowing people to use bathrooms corresponding with their gender identity will lead to increased violence or crime in restrooms. Do you stand by that statement?
Thank you for the question, Senator Cruz. Again, as an advocate, you advocate for the positions of your client. I haven't been an advocate for 3 years. I've been a judge. And when
3 years is not very long. And my question is simple. Do you stand by that statement?
Senator Cruz, it would not be appropriate or consistent with my ethical duties to my former clients to comment on my personal views about any case that I worked on. What my duty was to advocate zealously for my clients. I have set aside the advocacy role, and I now occupy a judicial role where what you're
Judge, your brief also contended, quote, in states where anti-discrimination protections are already the law, the predicted safety harm has never materialized. You made a bold, aggressive, factual statement, by the way. In North Carolina, you said safety concerns were, quote, unfounded. You were an aggressive advocate, an activist advocate. And I believe the statements that you represented to the court, and those are statements that you're making as an officer of the court. I believe they were false, and they are extreme. You testified to this committee that you were not aware of what happened in Loudoun County until this morning. I find that remarkable for someone who has spent years as one of the leading activists for allowing transgender biological men to use girls' restrooms and women's restrooms. In Loudoun County, Scott Smith, who's the parent of a 14-year-old girl, alleged the Loudoun County School Board covered up the sexual assault by a gender-fluid individual against his 9th grade daughter who entered the girls' bathroom in a skirt. And this individual was charged with 2 counts of forcible sodomy, 1 count of anal sodomy, and 1 count of forcible fellatio. The school district covered it up. They released this sexual predator, and the predator committed sexual assault again, twice. Why did you represent to the court that concerns about violent sexual predators committing violent crimes against young girls are unfounded and speculative? Why did you represent that to the court?
Thank you for the question. I advocated on behalf of my clients based upon the data that we had at the time, and I zealously did so in those cases and in every other case that I handled.
Were you right?
Senator Cruz, it would not be appropriate for me to comment on the merits of any personal views regarding litigation that I handled on behalf of my clients.
Well, these little girls who
Senator
were sexually
Cruz,
assaulted
let her respond.
will have a
Let's
very
let Ms. Thomas
different
respond.
assessment.
Senator Cruz,
These
let
little
Ms.
girls
Thomas
who were
respond.
assaulted. Thank you for your
Time is
views,
up.
but
You're past time. Let's afford Ms. Thomas an opportunity
she
to
is
respond to your
perfectly welcome to respond. But as I said, the little girls who were raped in Loudoun County would have a very different assessment of whether this threat and danger is speculative or not, and you're more than welcome to respond.
Thank you. I will just conclude by saying again that I understand the difference between being an advocate and being a judge. I am a judge now, and what I'm guided by is the record before me and the law, and that is what I do now, and it's what I'll continue to do. if confirmed.
Thank you.